The house still quiet, the kind of quiet that makes every thought sound louder than it should. I stood in the bathroom, toothbrush frozen in my hand, staring at the mirror like it had just betrayed me. My face looked wrong. Not damaged. Not unfamiliar. Just different, softened at the edges, eyes brighter somehow, cheekbones catching the light in a way they never had before. I leaned closer, heart thudding. "Okay," I whispered. "Don't panic." But panic didn't ask permission. For as long as I could remember, I'd been the brother. The older one. The protector. The one who never cried, never questioned, never wore anything softer than a hoodie. And yet, late nights, locked doors, borrowed clothes returned before anyone noticed, there was a secret I carried so carefully it felt like it might shatter me if I dropped it. I'd wanted to be her. Not her specifically, my sister, but what she represented. Freedom. Softness. Permission. The way she moved through the world without apologizing for taking up space in a feminine way. I told myself it was envy. Curiosity. A phase. Anything except the truth. And now the mirror stared back at me with a question I could no longer dodge. What if it actually happened? My phone buzzed on the counter. A message from my sister. "You up? I need the bathroom in 10. My stomach flipped. I splashed water on my face, grabbed a towel, and stepped back. The reflection lingered in my mind like a promise and a threat wrapped into one. I didn't know it yet, but that morning was the beginning of the end of pretending. Living as the brother after that felt like wearing clothes 2 sizes too small. Everything pinched. Conversations scraped. My name sounded louder than usual, like it didn't belong to me anymore. At breakfast, my sister chatted about her plans, twirling a strand of hair, completely unaware of the storm inside me. "You okay?" she asked, eyes narrowing slightly. "You're quiet." "Just tired," I said automatically. She shrugged. "You should sleep more. Or talk more. One of the two." I almost laughed. Almost cried. At work, the disruption was subtle but relentless. Co-workers joked the same way, slapped my shoulder, called me man, bro, dude. Each word landed heavier than the last. I caught my reflection in the office window. Broad shoulders, stiff posture, and felt a strange grief for someone who was still alive. During a meeting, my boss asked me to present. I stood, voice steady on the outside, shaking on the inside. As I spoke, a thought kept looping in my head. They don't see you. Not really. By lunchtime, I escaped to my car and just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing like I'd run a mile. "Get it together," I muttered. "You're fine." But I wasn't. At home that night, the tension finally snapped. My sister knocked on my door without waiting, flopping onto my bed like she always did. "You've been weird all week," she said. "What's going on?" I stared at the ceiling. Every instinct screamed don't. Don't say it. Don't open that door. "I don't know how to be your brother anymore," I said instead. Silence filled the room, thick and fragile. She sat up slowly. "What does that mean?" "It means," I swallowed, "I've spent my whole life wishing I could be like you." Her expression softened, not shocked, not amused. Curious. Careful. "Like me how?" I couldn't answer. Not yet. But the secret was breathing now, and it wasn't going back into its box. That night, after everyone went to sleep, I did something reckless. I opened her closet. I'd done it before, years ago, heart racing, hands shaking, promising myself it was just curiosity. But this time felt different. Intentional. I ran my fingers over fabric, soft dresses, skirts that swayed when I moved them, colors I'd never allowed myself to touch. I chose a simple skirt and a top, nothing flashy. I locked my door, changed slowly, reverently, like I was stepping into a sacred space. When I looked in the mirror, my breath caught. It wasn't perfect. My shoulders were still broad, my stance unsure. But something clicked. Something aligned. I adjusted the fabric, smoothed it down, and for the first time, I didn't flinch. "Hi," I whispered to myself. I experimented, makeup applied clumsily at first, wiped off, tried again. I practiced my voice, softer, then natural, then somewhere in between. I walked across the room, learning how the clothes moved with me instead of against me. Hours passed unnoticed. I felt right. Terrified. exhilarated, alive. When I finally changed back, folding everything carefully, I realized my hands were steady. My heart was calm. I slept deeply, dreaming in color. The following weeks became a double life. Brother by day, sister in the quiet moments. I learned the weight of eyeliner, the patience of lipstick, the way posture could change how the world responded to you. I took photos and deleted them. I practiced names in my head and pretended they were just thoughts. On weekends, I pushed myself further. Late-night drives dressed as myself, windows down, music loud, heart soaring. Quick stops at convenience stores where strangers called me miss without hesitation. Each time it happened, something inside me unclenched. But fear always followed. What if someone recognized me? What if my sister found out? What if I lost everything? The breaking point came unexpectedly. We were getting ready for a family event, the house buzzing with activity. I was in my room, buttoning a shirt I hated, when my sister walked in, without knocking. She froze. I froze. On my bed lay a skirt. Makeup. Shoes. The silence stretched until it hurt. "Is this why you said what you said?" she asked quietly. I nodded, throat tight. She sat down slowly. "You know you could have told me." "I was scared," I said. "I didn't want to lose you." She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled, soft, real. "You're not losing me." My knees almost gave out. That conversation changed everything. She helped me choose clothes that fit me, not her. Taught me makeup tricks. Gave me space when I needed it and support when I didn't know how to ask. We laughed. I cried. We stayed up late talking about identity, about expectations, about how roles can feel like cages if you're not careful. The first time I went out with her as myself, my heart nearly exploded out of my chest. We walked side by side, sisters in every way that mattered. People stared. Some smiled. Some didn't. I held my head high anyway. The real confrontation came at work. I couldn't keep splitting myself in two. It was exhausting. Painful. So one Monday morning, I dressed as myself, took a deep breath, and walked through those office doors. The room went quiet. My boss blinked. Co-workers whispered. Someone coughed. "I have something to say," I announced, voice shaking but clear. "This is who I am." The fear was unbearable. The relief even more so. Not everyone accepted it. Some kept their distance. A few surprised me with kindness. HR scheduled a meeting. Policies were discussed. Boundaries set. And slowly, life adjusted. I thought the hardest part would be telling people. I was wrong. The hardest part was waking up the morning after I came out at work, lying there, staring at the ceiling, realizing there was no costume to put back on. No switch to flip. No brother mode to retreat into when things got uncomfortable. This was it. And for the first time in my life, fear wasn't screaming. It was whispering. Now what? I rolled out of bed and padded to the mirror. My hair was a mess, my face bare, my shoulders still broader than I liked. But when I looked at myself, I didn't feel that old disconnect anymore. I didn't see a mistake trying to be corrected. I saw a work in progress. Someone becoming. "Good morning," I said softly. My reflection smiled back. The first week living openly was strange. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just strange. At work, some people avoided eye contact. Others overcompensated with friendliness. A few slipped up with my old name and corrected themselves quickly, embarrassment flashing across their faces. Each moment landed differently, some like tiny cuts, others like unexpected hugs. One afternoon, a coworker I barely knew stopped by my desk. "I just wanted to say," she hesitated, "you look really confident lately." I laughed quietly. "I don't feel it most days." She smiled. "You wear it well." That stayed with me. Confidence, I learned, wasn't the absence of fear. It was letting fear sit in the backseat instead of gripping the wheel. At home, my relationship with my sister shifted in a way I hadn't expected. We weren't just siblings anymore. We were mirrors. She noticed things about me before I did, when my shoulders relaxed, when my smile became real instead of practiced. She corrected my posture gently, teased me about my makeup experiments, defended me fiercely when relatives asked invasive questions. One night, Curled up on the couch, she glanced at me and said, "You know, I always wanted a sister close in age." I swallowed hard. "Yeah." She bumped my shoulder. "Yeah. Took you long enough." I laughed, tears blurring my vision. "But the world doesn't transform just because you do." There were bad days. A stranger muttering something cruel under their breath. A cashier's pause that lasted a second too long. A family member who said, "I just don't get it," and meant, "I don't want to try." Each moment tested me. There were nights I peeled off my clothes and stared at myself, doubt creeping in. Is this worth it? Am I making life harder for no reason? On those nights, I'd remember how it felt to live as my brother, how heavy every morning had been, how exhausting every interaction felt. I'd choose myself again. The real shift happened quietly. One Saturday afternoon, my sister and I were shopping, nothing fancy, just a mall trip. I was trying on dresses in a fitting room, the fluorescent lights unforgiving, the mirror brutally honest. I stepped out to show her a simple blue dress, hands clasped nervously. She gasped. "Oh, that's the one." I looked at myself again. Not critically. Kindly. "Yeah," I said, surprised. "I think it is." The sales associate smiled at me like I belonged there. And suddenly, I did. I stopped thinking of myself as a brother who wanted to be a sister. I was just a sister. Learning. Growing. Messy. Real. I started using my chosen name everywhere. Coffee shops, appointments, introductions. Each time felt like planting a flag in new ground. Some days the ground shook. Some days it held firm. I joined a small online community. Then a local one. People who nodded knowingly when I spoke, who laughed at the same struggles, who reminded me I wasn't alone or strange or broken. I wasn't becoming someone new. I was uncovering someone buried. The moment that sealed it came unexpectedly. A family gathering. Crowded. Loud. Familiar faces carrying old expectations. I stood in the bathroom beforehand, heart racing, adjusting my makeup with trembling hands. "You okay?" my sister asked through the door. "I'm scared," I admitted. She squeezed my hand. "Me too. But I've got you." We walked out together. There were questions. Awkward silences. A few forced smiles. But there were also hugs. And one quiet moment when an aunt pulled me aside and said, "You seem peaceful." I was. Now, when I think back to that brother who used to watch his sister with envy and confusion, my heart aches for them. They weren't weak. They weren't wrong. They were waiting. Waiting for courage. Waiting for safety. Waiting for permission. If you're listening to this and you're still waiting, still hiding parts of yourself, still wondering what if, I want you to know something. Transformation doesn't always arrive like magic. Sometimes it arrives as a series of terrifying, beautiful choices. I didn't lose a brother to become a sister.